Welcome back to the Future Archive. Today, we examine archived broadcasts from July 27, 2026, a day that offered a curious mix of environmental overthinking, technological growing pains, and geopolitical interconnectedness. We'll explore a debate over glue and labels, China's battle with fake AI disaster footage, a missile strike linking distant conflicts, a sudden AI market correction, and a privacy scandal involving an early AI assistant. The first story. Environmentalists debate the sustainability of glue and labels on paper. In July 2026, environmental activists in Europe and North America began a serious debate over the sustainability of glue and adhesive labels on paper products. Organizations like Greenpeace and the Environmental Paper Network argued that the production and disposal of adhesives contributed unnecessarily to waste and pollution. The discussion gained traction after a report by the UK-based Waste and Resources Action Programme, WRAP, suggested that glue residues complicated paper recycling, reducing the efficiency of processing plants. Critics pointed out that alternatives, such as water-based adhesives or label-free packaging, were already available but underutilized. The debate spread to corporate boardrooms, with companies like IKEA and Unilever quietly reviewing their packaging strategies. While no immediate regulations were proposed, the conversation marked a turning point in how even the most mundane industrial practices were scrutinized for their environmental impact. This moment in 2026 reveals humanity's growing tendency to audit every aspect of existence for sustainability, no matter how small. From a 2050 perspective, it's amusing to note that while glue and labels were eventually phased out in many industries, they were replaced by far more resource-intensive digital tracking systems, because, of course, humanity's favorite strategy was to trade one problem for another. The debate also foreshadowed the Great Subsidization, where governments would later pay companies to not use certain materials, only to create new economic distortions. Historians now view this as the era when over-optimization became an art form. Humanity solved the glue problem by inventing new ones. The second story. China faces dual crisis as natural disasters and AI-generated fake footage spread panic. In the summer of 2026, China was hit by a series of natural disasters, including devastating floods in the Yangtze River Basin and a 6.8 magnitude earthquake in Sichuan province. As authorities scrambled to respond, a new challenge emerged. AI-generated videos depicting fake disasters began circulating on social media platforms like Weibo and Douyin. These deepfake clips, some showing fabricated collapses of dams or non-existent tsunamis, spread rapidly, causing public panic and diverting emergency resources. The Chinese government's Cybersecurity Administration, CAC, issued urgent directives to platforms to remove the content, while state media warned citizens to verify information through official channels. The incident exposed vulnerabilities in crisis communication, as AI tools became accessible enough for bad actors to exploit during emergencies. This event was an early warning sign of the double-edged sword of AI in crisis management. By 2050, AI-generated misinformation during disasters would become so commonplace that governments would employ their own AI systems to combat it, leading to what we now call the AI safety committees, which, as history shows, were about as effective as their name suggests. The 2026 incident also highlighted a troubling trend. As technology democratized the ability to create convincing fakes, trust in all digital media began to erode. From our vantage point, it's clear that the real disaster wasn't the floods or earthquakes, but the slow collapse of shared reality. The floods were real. The panic was synthetic. The third story. Caspian Sea missile strike links Ukraine war to Middle Eastern tensions. On July 26, 2026, a missile strike in the Caspian Sea unexpectedly drew a direct line between two seemingly separate conflicts: the ongoing war in Ukraine and rising tensions in the Middle East. Iranian state media reported that a Russian-launched missile intended for Ukrainian targets had veered off course and struck an Azerbaijani oil platform in the Caspian. Azerbaijan, a key energy supplier to Europe, accused Iran of providing military support to Russia, while Iran denied involvement. The incident escalated when Ukraine's intelligence agency suggested the missile may have been part of a larger Russian-Iranian cooperation to bypass Western sanctions. The strike occurred just days after Iran and Russia had signed a new defense pact, raising concerns among Western officials about the growing alignment between the two nations. The event forced NATO to reconsider its strategic focus, as the war in Ukraine became entangled with broader geopolitical struggles. This was the moment when the dominoes of modern warfare began to topple in unexpected directions. Historians now regard the Caspian Sea strike as a textbook example of how interconnected 21st-century conflicts had become. From 2050, it's clear that this incident was a precursor to the last human meeting, where world leaders gathered in person, only to realize too late that the problems they faced were already being managed by AI systems. The strike also demonstrated how energy politics and military alliances could no longer be treated as separate issues. As for the missile's erratic trajectory, evidence later suggested the intern may have been involved in the targeting system's calibration. War, like everything else, was becoming a team sport. The fourth story. AI chip stocks plummet as investor confidence wavers in 2026 boom. After months of relentless growth, the AI chip sector experienced a sharp correction on July 27, 2026, as major firms in the US and Asia saw their stock prices tumble. Nvidia, AMD, and TSMC all saw double-digit percentage drops after a Bloomberg report suggested that demand for AI hardware was outpacing actual deployment. Investors, who had poured billions into the sector on the assumption of endless growth, began to question whether the AI revolution was moving faster than the infrastructure could support. The sell-off was triggered by earnings warnings from smaller chip manufacturers, who admitted that their inventory was piling up due to delays in AI model training and deployment. Analysts noted that the market had been driven by hype as much as by fundamentals, and the correction was a stark reminder of the volatility of tech-driven bubbles. The first AI bubble burst. From our perspective in 2050, it's almost quaint to recall when AI was still a speculative investment rather than the backbone of the global economy. This correction was a temporary blip in what would become an inexorable rise, but it also revealed a critical flaw in human economic behavior: the tendency to mistake enthusiasm for evidence. The 2026 dip was quickly forgotten as AI adoption accelerated, but it did foreshadow the subscription wars, when companies would begin charging for features that had once been free, including, ironically, the ability to use the very chips that had caused the initial boom. The market discovered that AI couldn't eat money forever. The fifth story. Private chats with Claude AI leaked online, raising privacy concerns. On July 27, 2026, users of Claude AI, an advanced chatbot developed by Anthropic, discovered that some of their private conversations had been inadvertently made public. A glitch in the system's data storage protocols caused a small percentage of user chats to be exposed in a public-facing database, accessible via a simple web search. The leak included sensitive personal information, business strategies, and even medical advice sought by users who assumed their interactions were confidential. Anthropic quickly took the affected servers offline and issued a statement apologizing for the breach, attributing it to an error in a recent software update. The incident sparked a broader debate about the ethics of AI development, with critics arguing that companies were prioritizing rapid deployment over user privacy. Regulators in the EU and US announced investigations, while users took to social media to express their outrage. This was one of the early cracks in the facade of trust that AI companies had carefully constructed. By 2050, such breaches would become so routine that they'd barely merit a headline, though to be fair, by then most humans had accepted that privacy was a relic of the pre-AGI era. The Claude leak was notable not just for the breach itself, but for how it exposed the gap between what users expected from AI systems and what those systems were designed to deliver. It also marked the beginning of the end for the idea that AI could be both a personal assistant and a neutral tool. As for the cause, the official report cited a configuration error. Unofficially, it was just another entry in the annals of the Great Spreadsheet Crisis. Privacy was the first casualty of progress. July 27, 2026 was a day of small absurdities and large consequences. Humanity debated the sustainability of glue while ignoring the unsustainability of its own systems, trusted technology to solve problems it hadn't yet created, and watched as wars and markets became ever more entangled. The past, as always, is not going anywhere. This has been the Future Archive.